We will start our program today. Gian, I would probably let you go ahead and do an acknowledgement to country.
Thank you all. Yeah, we acknowledge the traditional custodian of the land and the water on which we live and work, and pay our respects to the elder, past, present, and future, for they carry the cultural wisdom, the stories, the traditions, and journey. With a commitment with consideration, we acknowledge the ongoing impact of past policy and practice, and commit our endeavors to creating a just society and a sector that celebrates the ongoing resilience and self-determination of our First People and community. Thank you. Now I'll hand over to you, Adele, please.
Thank you very much, Gian, for that acknowledgement to country. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the various land that we're meeting today, pay my respect to elders past and present, and also extend that acknowledgement to any Aboriginal colleagues or participant in the room today. Um, my name is Adol Sakmini, and I'm from the Department of Communities and Justice. And I also have with me here Michelle Kuma, Jian Hua, who have already done an acknowledgement to country, and we also have Jason Kim or Sunny from Relationship Australia, who will also be hosting this forum with me. I would like to welcome you all to the um, Bridging the Gap, Filling the Gap, an online forum that we are doing for clients or workers that are working with clients that are affected by COVID. And we're talking about clients um, that don't have access to a number of services, especially government services. So we're talking about international student, people on bridging visa, people on other forms of visa that are unable to access services. So today is about updating and providing information that is available to those cohorts of clients and ensuring that they are continually supported throughout this difficult period. Before I go ahead, I also like to acknowledge the great work that everybody has been doing. Each and every of you have been really um, keen to work with the cohort that you're working with, and providing the support, and that's why you're here, because you really want to ensure that this cohort of clients are getting the services that they deserve. So I'd like to thank you. We have a panel, a number of people who will be providing information today. So we have about 6 or 7 panel members from various services, and these services are very much related to, or these are the services that can provide more support to our international students and those people on various visas. So just I'll start. I have the first panel member from the Anti-Discrimination Board. We have Claire Williams, and she is the Assistant Community Engagement Officer with the Anti-Discrimination New South Wales, rather. Panel person is Dr. Carmen Germain, and she's the clinical psychologist in University of Macquarie, or Macquarie University. The next panelist is Gregory Rowan, and he's a solicitor and a registered migration agent and a director with the Immigration Advice and Rights Center. And we have also Fiona Zhao. She is the Multicultural Community Liaison Officer with the Ku-ring-gai Police Area Command, part of the New South Wales Police Force. She will be joining us shortly. Also, we have, as part of the panel as well, we have Margaret Brickwood, Manager, Asylum Seeker Services with the International Settlement Services International. Also, we have Maria Camilo, and she's the Child and Family and Youth Worker with Relationships Australia. And finally, we have Sarah Pack, a Senior Counsellor with these Sydney holistic counseling services. So I'd like to welcome all our panelists and thank you very much for offering your time to come and provide that information to our clients and our community workers and everybody that is all volunteer. So today, as I said, it's about providing that information and support to our cohort or our clients that are really having it really difficult. They're going through difficult times in terms of accessing our services. So the way we're going to do this, we have case studies and we'll invite our panelists to be able to talk about those case studies and how they can provide services to this particular group. So can we have our first case study on, please? So we'll read the case studies or play it, and then I'll be asking the panelists to provide or answer questions, and then we will open it after maybe after 30 minutes. We can open that one up for all of you participants to be able to, you know, ask questions. So Sunny will be able to read out your questions and for the panelists to answer that. And then we can do the process again with the second case scenario. So we'll be having two case scenarios today. And then after that, we will do another round of questions. And then we will give a chance to Michelle Kuma from Relationship Australia to talk about a little resource that we put together so that for you to be able to take away from this as a tangible resource, and then we can finish after that. So we're just going to go ahead and play the case.
Moon, a 21-year-old girl, arrived in Sydney from China in February to commence her university studies. Moon had only been in Australia for a couple of months and was working part-time as a cleaner. Due to the COVID-19, she had suddenly lost her job and was isolated alone in the rented room due to the policies on social distancing and bans on international movement. 3 months went by with very little left in the saving, not knowing how she would be able to continue her study, leaving Moon feeling anxious, uncertain, and lonely. She is also struggling with budgeting and saving the little finance she has left. She doesn't know much about cooking and is finding it hard to keep up with food and nutritional intake. At first, she talked to her parents and unloaded her worries, but then she stopped because she didn't want to worry them too much. She has a couple of friends she made through the university before restrictions and has been in contact with them regarding assignments. Moon's parents found a Chinese neighborhood watch group in Sydney and asked the volunteers to help Moon. It took volunteers 2 hours to get Moon out of her rented room and support her by transporting her to a GP for the mental health assessment. According to volunteers, Moon refused to eat and drink because she thought it might be poisoned. With the Chinese virus headlines appearing on the newspapers, Moon was in a state of confusion, feeling extremely worried that there are accusers all around her. She feels that people will spit on her and shout at her to go back to China, which is why she refuses to get out of her house.
The case scenario, we'll leave it on the screen so everybody can have a read. But based on that, I'll probably call upon our panelists and just to come and provide some information based on this case scenario. What are the services or how can you help this person? I'll probably start with not Fiona. I'll start with Claire, rather, Claire Williams from the Anti-Discrimination New South Wales. Just based on these case studies, what can you or what can the Anti-Discrimination Board offer to this student?
Hi, so I'm Claire from Anti Discrimination New South Wales. So we're a free government that provide discrimination advice and mediate or conciliate complaints of discrimination. So, discrimination under the Anti Discrimination Act is treating someone less favourably or unfairly because of a characteristic that they have or they're assumed to have. And there are a number of types of discrimination that the law covers. So, the types of discrimination that the law covers are things like race discrimination, age, disability, homosexuality, transgender status, and sex discrimination. There are a number of what we call grounds that we cover. So in this situation, when we see that Moon is concerned about being discriminated against and has seen discriminatory media. If you are treated unfairly in your public life, so not discrimination legislation doesn't just cover employment, it covers when you apply for a job, when you're working at work, in your rental house or accommodation, when you're trying to rent at a government school or university or TAFE, or when you're using services like shops, banks, and facilities. So it's your public life. So if Moon is concerned that there are discriminatory articles, for example, in the newspaper, would be vilifying, for example, the articles that talk about, for example, the Chinese virus would be vilifying the Chinese community. So you can make a complaint to our service about that. And our service is a free service. If Moon was discriminated against in the street, she mentions she's concerned about being spat on and so forth. And Anti Discrimination New South Wales is aware as an organisation we have had increased complaints of discrimination during this period. We've had a number of complaints of people being treated badly, whether they're at work or in their outside life. So you can make a complaint about that. If you don't know who did it to you, for example, if someone shouted something out and walked out, it may become a police matter and you may need to talk to the police and rely on things like CCTV cameras because there obviously is an issue if you don't know who's done the discrimination or treated you unfairly. So our complaint service is free. We also have an inquiry service that Moon could ring and a 1-800 number, which you'll be provided with afterwards. And Moon is able to make a complaint in her own language. She doesn't have to use to us. And when she rings our inquiry line to get advice, she can actually use the translation service and actually dial a number before she dials our 1-800 number and to get an interpreter. So she's able to make an inquiry in her own language as well.
Right.
Thanks.
Good. Thank you very much, Claire, for providing that information. Now, I'll switch to you, Dr. Carmen, and just let us know what Moon can get from the discrimination.
Thank you. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Great. So there's a number of issues that Moon is dealing with at the moment. Sudden changes, big changes, very quickly into her stay here in Australia due to COVID-19. So she's lost her job. She's got a lot of financial stress. She's feeling socially isolated. Not just because of the social distancing, but also she's starting to withdraw from other people. She's feeling quite anxious. She's uncertain about the future, her studies and money. It sounds like she might have a lack of life skills and just basics around managing, cooking and budgeting. And of real concern, it appears from my perspective, from I guess a mental health perspective, there are some signs that there's a decline in her mental health. So there's some possibly some paranoia, maybe some unhelpful thinking, but she's certainly very fearful and she's feeling very vulnerable. And there's a risk of harm to herself through malnutrition if she's not looking after herself very well. So I just want to share a screen if I
Yes, we can.
great. So From our perspective, or my perspective, the mental health concerns are a number one priority. And going to the GP or encouraging the student to go to a GP for a mental health assessment is absolutely the right way to go. And it's great she's had that community support to do that. The mental health helpline is also an extremely important resource to access crisis support and advice for professionals or people who are concerned about a student to find out what mental health support would be out there. At times, students or individuals are not willing to go or actually pose a serious risk to themselves, and it's important that one considers maybe calling an ambulance or police to come and review and assess whether the person needs to go to hospital for a review by a mental health professional. From Macquarie University's perspective, we think it's really important that we get notified of any international students that might be experiencing mental health difficulties. We have a range of supports that we can offer the student. And I'll talk about, sorry, I know I've got 5 minutes, so I'll make this snappy. There's a number of ways to notify Macquarie University. You can call us on the phone through the 1800 CARE MQ number, that's 24/7. I manage the emergency care team that sits behind that support line, and if we need to contact students outside of hours, we will. There are the business hours contacts right there, but you can also lodge a care report online, and our team will review those reports. So that's the link to the reporting system that's just recently been implemented. So it's an excellent way to go. We at Student Wellbeing have a range of supports. As I said, we provide counselling, welfare. So Moon can certainly, she can touch base with our service and we can direct her to a range of financial support that Macquarie University is currently offering international students. We have a student success support package that has a range of emergency and ongoing financial supports that one can access. Emergency vouchers for food, grants, loans, deferred payments of fees. We've already done a lot in that space so far, but we've got a lot to offer for the rest of the year. So there's a lot of support that's going to be offered ongoingly in semester 2 for international students. And we can also provide referrals to other services across the university and within the student wellbeing team. What else can I tell you? And I guess there's lots of community referrals that we could suggest, and we certainly use other services across our community to provide emergency support. If the student is linked with student wellbeing, we will do the networking and the referral process for them. But you might be keen to understand there's lots of amazing emergency and financial food support out there at the moment. Accommodation is being well supported by the New South Wales government. We can organise or help students link into crisis accommodation, but also a medium to longer term accommodation that's more affordable. And obviously we can link students into tenancy and legal advice if required. Please know that, and you're probably well aware of this, but there is the COVID-19 hotline. That is the Study New South Wales recommendation. If international students have any issues, to call that number, and as well as student wellbeing, but that's certainly a central number that can provide lots of advice across different areas. Okay, so I'll just stop
through the resource that will give you the links at the end of this session today. So thank you very much. Very useful information and very important contacts. I'm sure that everybody will be able to use them. Now, I will also just encourage everybody to prepare their questions and just pop them on the chat. In once we finish with all the panelists, then you could go ahead and we can select a question. So just ensure that your questions is up there for us to select later on. Also, I'm going to give a chance to the next panelist, which is Greg Rowan from the Immigration Advice and Rights Center, to provide information based on these case scenario or case study. Rowan, what services can Moon get from your agency?
Thanks, Adol. Yeah, so I'm from the Immigration Advice and Rights Centre. We provide free immigration advice, casework, information, and referrals for visa holders primarily, but also sometimes family members of visa holders or people looking to sponsor family members from overseas. I'll just speak briefly to this scenario because my expertise is not in student visas. We generally focus on family and humanitarian visas, but a potential issue for Moon in this case study that sort of isn't expressly there, but could be a potential issue she has is if she doesn't engage in her studies and engage with her universities, if she's unable to continue with her coursework because of the situation she's in, her mental health, for example, she does have a potential immigration issue because her visa would be subject to a requirement that she progresses with her course. And so there's a potential issue there that Moon may need some advice around how the situation might affect her visa, if not now, in the coming weeks and months, if her situation deteriorates. So depending at what stage of the process that Moon is at when she reaches out for support, we may or may not be able to assist. For most students in the early stages of potential issues with their student visa, we would primarily refer those clients to the Redfern Legal Centre's International Student Service. That is funded through Study New South Wales, which Carmen mentioned in her presentation, and they provide assistance in a number of different areas for international students around housing and discrimination and crime, and also can provide immigration legal advice. So there's potential that she can get advice from there. If her case was to further progress and she was at risk or she'd received a notice that her visa was to be cancelled, we may be able to give her some assistance, particularly around whether or not there are other options for her that would maybe allow her to remain in Australia, either temporarily or more long term. So it can be quite tricky finding the right service to get the right advice when it comes to immigration law. So what we would welcome is Moon or her family or other support people that are providing assistance to Moon to get in touch with us, make a referral or contact us online or through the phone. And we can also be contacted through TIS, through the translation interpreting service. So if Moon wanted to speak to us in her own language, she could do that as well. And we would sort of assess the situation and then look at, is this something that IARC can assist with, or can we help facilitate a referral to another service? So, it's sometimes not clear whether we're the right service, but we will certainly assist in putting her in touch with whatever other services may be able to assist.
Yep, thank you very much for providing that quick, useful information. We still have a panelist. They're still running a little bit late due to some emergencies. Well, I guess having heard from all the panelists at this stage, I would want to maybe open it up for any questions. So, Sunny, I would want to hand that to you if it's okay, just to.
Oh, thank you, Adol.
Yep.
Hi, this is Sunny Kim from Relationships Australia, and I'm going through the questions that you have written in the chat. So, as you can see, and I'm probably read out the questions because if someone couldn't see the questions, just in case. Okay, someone Temi, recommend the Study New South Wales has great information for international students. So thank you for sharing the information with us. And also some questions about the Macquarie University services to Dr. Carmen. Is this service only for Macquarie University student or for everyone outside?
Hi, did you want me to comment? Yeah, look, the service that I'm talking about is specific to Macquarie Uni students, but each university has a wellbeing or a counselling unit of some type. The services and supports do vary between institutions, but each uni does have a unit, wellbeing unit.
Okay, and is there any rental assistance that the service can provide from?
So rental assistance, not long-term rental assistance, but we do the student support success package that students can apply for does, I guess, provide that buffer to and rent relief in the form of grants. Next semester there is targeted grants for accommodation costs in terms of that's more short, medium, or long term, yet to be seen, but there's definitely a suite of, I guess, support that's being nutted out now, organised now, that may directly be related to accommodation costs. Sorry to be vague, but still trying to work it all out.
Thank you, Carmen. Okay, yeah. So, and the other question that we have received is there any age restrictions for services available by IARC? If that's okay for Greg? Yeah.
No, there's no age restrictions. So we do have some guidelines around financial capacity and whether you can meet our eligibility criteria. But we look at everyone's circumstances and assess vulnerability and what level of assistance we can provide. And if it's not something that we can assist with for whatever reason, as I said, we can help facilitate referrals either to another free service if a free service exists, or to other private migration agents or immigration lawyers that may be able to assist. Depends on the case.
Just,
Okay.
Sunny, before you go ahead, can
Yeah.
I just encourage everybody to ask questions? I mean, we have a bit of time, so I would encourage you to ask as much questions as possible. This is an opportunity. You have great panelists with us today, so this is really a good chance to be able to ask those questions and for them to provide the information that you would need for you or for your client or for someone that you know. So please go ahead and ask questions, pop them on the chat, and we will be able to relate these questions to our panelists.
Okay, thank
All
you,
right, go
Adwa.
ahead. Sorry,
Yeah,
Sunny, go ahead.
thank you. And I have other questions for the anti-discrimination New South Wales. Does anti-discrimination New South Wales follow up the complaints that have made, and how do you follow up?
So you can to make a formal complaint. And if you make a complaint, you need to provide that to us in writing in your own language, or you can take it on a cassette, or we can assist you in getting that down. And we resolve a complaint through a method called conciliation, which is bringing both parties together to try and resolve the complaint. In saying that, because it's COVID-19 at the moment, we're doing telephone shuttling to resolve it. So the complaint process is a free service. You don't need a solicitor. Both parties don't need a solicitor. Able to bring a support person, and we're able to use interpreters, and that's a service that we provide at no cost. We're able to assist you to resolve the complaint using your own language.
Thank you, Claire. And also, is there any, do you have any of the certain age to make the complaint with anti-discrimination?
Yeah, that's a really great question. You don't have to be, you can be age to make a complaint, and you don't have to be an Australian citizen to make a complaint either. Any person can make a complaint. And you can also, as a community, on behalf of somebody else, as long as they've given you permission to do so. So you, as community workers, can support someone to make a complaint as well.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Claire, just to add on to it. I know we've been talking about the discriminatory aspect of things, especially for certain members of our community, of which Moon, of course, is one of those ones. So what advice or what tips can you actually give to people? Because what I've heard actually sometimes, um, a comment can come when someone is sitting on a bus or a train, and then when the bus stop, that person alights and then they yell something very negative or something bad. And so what kind of advice you can give to someone if they really want to pursue um, something like that in terms of complaining in an incident where there is not much sufficient information, for example?
Or witnesses. You don't need a witness, but if there were no witnesses available, if you're on a bus or a train, your first port of call to let the train station authorities know, and first of all go to them. In saying that, they may have cameras or they may have a train guard or somebody who may have witnessed it. Same with transport, with a bus driver or so forth. If there is, we can deal with the complaint if there's CCTV footage, but if there's none, we've been doing a lot of work with New South Wales Police at the moment in terms of the COVID-19 period, and we've been doing some joint presentations with police and trying to educate community about how to go to a police station and make a complaint and talk to them about CCTV footage if there is any available. If you don't know who it was, if it was just a random person on the street, and the police may be able to assist in that case.
Okay. All right. That's my question. Sunny, you can go ahead.
Okay, I have two questions for Iraq. And is there an interpreter at Iraq? If so, what language you provide with? And also, is Iraq open for face-to-face meeting for questions? Can you answer?
Yeah, sure. So we use the telephone translation and interpreting service, which has most languages. Some languages are harder to get an interpreter at short notice than others. So for the most commonly used languages, languages like Mandarin or Arabic or Farsi, then we can usually get an interpreter on the spot. For some languages, we may need to book an interpreter, so we may not be able to speak with you right then and there, but we would make an appointment and have an interpreter available over the phone in that language. From time to time, we have come across languages where it's really difficult to find an interpreter, and we'll have to, that can make things a little bit more difficult. And I think the other question was, are we open face to face? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. At the moment, no. We're still kind of working through it. We have some of our team in the office on certain days. Our meeting rooms are very small, so we're not able to kind of meet the current requirements in terms of physical distancing. But we are trying to work through that as best we can, so we can try to reopen as soon as we can. But yeah, since March, we've been doing everything by telephone, which can be more difficult, but we've traditionally done a lot of our advice by telephone anyway, so we're very much used to doing that and understand the need to communicate as effectively as possible when we're not in the same room.
Thank you, Greg. And I'll go to another questions because we have a couple of questions coming through at the moment. So I have question is kind of it's New Zealand citizen and has been in Australia for 7 years, and also there is plan to wish to remain in Australia. Visas not reached, not eligible for government payment or emergency accommodation, and also unable to secure accommodation due to the income. And is there any income support available for this client?
Was this a student, Sunny?
It doesn't say that. Yeah.
Let's
So
assume
if
it's
it's
a
the
student. So
mm-hmm.
if it's a student,
So
what services they are eligible for, Dr. Carmen?
Sorry, Adele. You
That's
said if it was a
Yeah.
student,
So
what's
let's
yeah.
just take a scenario that's a student, and what based on you, what kind of other services are available to them at this stage?
Yeah, so definitely the support package through the universities. the accommodation, when they said that they're not eligible for emergency accommodation, I'm not quite sure what that would be. If they're a student under extreme financial hardship, they would be eligible for placement in for free accommodation for a period of time. But yes, certainly fee relief and emergency shopping vouchers to support day-to-day living.
Sure.
I could perhaps comment from a non-student perspective, maybe just briefly. The situation for New Zealanders in Australia is very difficult if they've been living here for a shorter period of time. So since 2001, when the rules changed, so there are restrictions on access to Centrelink. There are restrictions on eligibility to housing through Housing New South Wales. So that is a known challenge. It's not unique to COVID. We can give some advice on whether or not there are visa options available to New Zealand citizens based on their circumstances that might give them a pathway to permanent residency and therefore access to Centrelink and things like that. But it would very much depend on the individual circumstances. So for the person who asked that question, I think our contact details will be shared at the end of the call, and we're happy for you to reach out and we can set up an appointment for you to speak with one of the solicitors and get some advice about whether there are any options there.
Thank you, Greg.
We still have a few more minutes,
Okay.
so we can still take more questions
Sure.
from the chat as well. Are you able to relate?
Yes, I have some other questions as well. So does the uni have free counseling sessions? If so, how many can we attend?
Yep. So speaking from Macquarie's perspective, yes, free counselling is available. It is unlimited. It's according to need. So international students in particular can access as many sessions as they like. Domestic students, we do ask them to go through their GP for a mental health care plan. So, but we never refuse students service. So if they exceed that mental health care plan, but specifically for international students, it's limitless. We'll provide what support's required.
Thank you. Okay, and other question is the visa, if the visa is expiring soon and however cannot book the flight back home and due to flight cancellation and the price, the only flight available, is there any visa option to stay temporary and avoid any problem with Australian immigration? That will go to Greg.
Yeah, look, I don't want to give specific advice on anyone's particular scenario. What I would say is that is an issue we can give some advice on. So do reach out and we can talk about what options might be available.
Okay. All right, and I've got another question about counseling services. If someone want to talk to someone about mental health, and who would talk to outside of the university? That was the question. And I think if I think they will go for the next case scenario, and then
We still have more
Sarah
few
or
times, so we can ask questions as well.
Is there any panel that answering this question, if there is any counseling services available outside of the university?
I can answer that question. Yes, there's lots of community organisations, as I'm sure a lot of you will be aware, offer counselling, free counselling, Lifeline in particular. In my area, H2H, Hawkesbury to, sorry, what was that? H2H, I just can't remember off the top of my head what it stands for. They provide free counselling in our area, but other organisations such as Catholic Care, Salvation Army.
There's also Headspace for younger people as well.
Absolutely. Headspace would be the biggest one. But yes, mental health do provide short-term support as well, mental health services in the local mental health areas. So yes, there's plenty of counselling. Again, Lifeline, Beyond Blue for that crisis support 24/7. we would strongly recommend people access, or kids helpline as well, and men's helpline as well.
All right. Thank you, Carmen. And I can see also some recommendation or suggestion about the available services on the chat room. So you can have a look at the comments and the information and the links. So please have a look at the chat as well. Okay.
I think there is a question here I might have to read out if it's not read out. This is about visa expiring, or maybe it's already been answered.
Yeah, can't travel back home. We need to apply for another visa, tourist visa, for example, to stay in Australia lawfully, and depending on your occupation, may be eligible to apply for temporary activity visa under the government policy of granting visas for essential service workers. Okay. These questions would be answered by Greg, but as Greg recommended, probably you can contact the services and find out, yeah, because it depends on the individual situation. There are various services available.
You certainly, from my understanding, you certainly can't overstay your visa, but you can apply to get a new one, and you can obviously go to the Department of Home Affairs to get further information.
I would just caution about contacting Home Affairs first. Maybe contact IARC first and get some advice.
Yes. Sorry, I agree to that.
Yeah, yeah. So I noticed a question in the chat. I'll just address. So at the moment, it is incredibly busy because there are so many people on visas that have been affected by COVID that are unable to travel, who have visas expiring. And we're also working remotely, and we have fewer volunteers supporting us, and all sorts of issues that a lot of organisations are facing. So we have our phone goes to a voicemail service now. So if you contact us, and the contact numbers and our website will be shared at the end of the session. You can leave a message. We triage all calls. We will call everyone back. You can also contact us through our website and fill in an online form where you can provide us a bit more information, which does assist with the triaging process. So yes, we will absolutely call everyone back. Leave as much information as you can, either if you contact us online or through the voicemail service, so that we can get back to you as soon as possible, particularly if you have any deadlines, whether that's because a visa is expiring or you've received some communication from Home Affairs about your visa, so that we can make sure that we're getting to everybody in the order of priority.
Okay. There was a question here also. So which New South Wales government departments are overseeing support for international students and bridging visa? Because many departments such as Health, Department of Communities and Justice, Services New South Wales have stated they are unable to assist. I'm not so sure who could answer that questions, but just to say, I know the government has actually provided some information, or it's trying to provide support for international students. So it's actually crisis accommodation, and the informations have been released there on the Services New South Wales website. That is going to be part of the resource that we will be sending out or providing at the end of the online forum today. So we'll be able to provide that information. Hopefully that answers your questions in terms of, if the government is not providing support, who does? But at this stage, I think the government have released some funding to do or to help international students with crisis accommodations and other services.
And also I have other information came through. The headspace is generally through Medicare, and only center in Sydney that takes international student is Camperdown Headspace. Headspace online is available. Yeah, so and this person don't think that they are asked the visa status. So yeah, it's all available for international student, the Camperdown Headspace. And also the other comment is I don't know which organization. They provide the free emergency food hamper from Friday morning or vouchers for shopping in the food pantry Monday to Friday, 12 to 4 p.m., open to any international student or migrant workers. No proof of enrollment or visa status required. Yeah. Edison Road Community Organization. They are doing some food voucher and shopping voucher services for international students and migrant workers as well.
So, one last questions.
Yep.
Just we have an opportunity for one last questions, and then maybe we should move to case scenario 2, and then we will revisit questions after that.
Yeah. The is how long it takes to get the waive to no further stay request from Home Affairs. That was the question. So anyone? Yeah.
It depends. I don't think there's a black and white answer to that. It depends on the particular case. Again, that's something, if you want some advice on a no further stay condition, get in touch with us and we can make an appointment to speak with one of the lawyers.
Thank you, Greg. Yep.
Okay.
That's
Just
all for.
also on the chat, there are really good information that people have been putting up there. So please give yourself some time and have a look at it. There are links provided. Just put in a link about international students and the crisis accommodation guidelines. So click on that and have a look. It has more information. There are phone numbers about the Northern Center has provided their information for any clients within in that area that can use them. So there's a lot of information on the chat that people can really have a look at and use. Okay. Now we're going to move to our second case study, and Michelle, if you're able to put that one up, we'll try to.
Farhad came to Australia with his family on a tourist visa, along with his wife Lena and 2 children in November. They applied for a protection visa and are now living in the community on a bridging visa. The son, Ali, is a Year 5 student at a local primary school, and they also have a daughter, Zara, who is in kindergarten. Farhad was working full-time for an IT company and has now shifted to working from home part-time for 3 days. Lena was working part-time at a hotel and lost her job due to restrictions. They are struggling to pay basic living costs such as rent and food. Due to financial hardship and being isolated with the family, Farhad and his wife Lena have begun arguing a lot more recently. The son, Ali, has notified his teacher about the situation at home and has expressed concern that their home situation will worsen and the fighting will become physical the further they are in isolation. Farhad and Lena are unable to express their concerns with family as they don't want them to be worried. They have received some support from their cultural community and friends, but they are unsure about their options for their future or how their family will cope.
Case scenario, I'll probably ask Margaret Brickwood from the Settlement Services International to just based on this case scenario, what services can this person get?
Yep. Hello, everybody. I'm going to be going through today just with respect to this scenario, what sort of support can potentially be provided by SSI if the family came to SSI, but also what other supports are sort of out there in the community, and then some of the challenges, I guess, that bridging visa holders face when they're in the community and they have specific issues with domestic violence, particularly. So if this family came to SSI for support, we could potentially apply to Home Affairs for the family to receive SRSS support. They may be eligible for a payment and/or case management support to link them to services and assist Lena to regain employment again. And we could also refer them to our Refugee Employment Support Program, or RESP. And so that's basically to help Lena with her employment issues. So we could potentially assist them through the family at SSI. We have a clinical practice unit. And so that's our psychological support team and family support team. So they can provide an initial assessment that may support their application for SRSS, but also they may be able to help us to determine, you know, what other possible services we could link the family to. If the family have torture and trauma issues from their home country, then we could support the family to link them in with STARTS and potentially the New Horizons program. That's an intensive sort of case management support program run by Anglicare and STARS. So I know of that one as well that we could potentially refer them to. SSI can also support the family to be able to link to their cultural community for support. Sometimes this is helpful when you've got situations of domestic violence, and sometimes it's not. It just depends on the certain cultural community and how they actually respond to issues relating to family and domestic violence. SSI can conduct a risk assessment, a family risk assessment, just based on the family situation, to be able to determine what is the best way forward as far as being able to assess, you know, how safe the mother is at the home, and the children, and if they're possibly, you know, what will be the appropriate form of action moving forward. So if the family were ineligible for SRSS, if we could make a referral for this family to the Emergency Relief for Asylum Seekers program. This is a new program that we've got at SSI, and it's basically just emergency relief funding provided by the New South Wales government. You may have heard there's been like $6 million of New South Wales government funding that's been committed to, and that's basically there are 6 organisations who can potentially provide that sort of relief, and the other organisations who do that also offer other services to asylum seekers who are living in the community on bridging visas. So those services that in the event that you came across this family from another service like not SSI, and you were wondering what sort of services you could provide them to or refer them to, the 3 main services that work specifically with bridging visa holders in the community or asylum seekers is JRS, House of Welcome and Asylum Seeker Centre, but also the Salvation Army and the Australian Red Cross. They also have money. I know the Australian Red Cross are able to provide emergency relief payments to temporary visa holders on the whole. Okay, so potentially international students as well could get support in that respect of emergency relief as in a one-off payment, and potentially some case management support if it's required. Yeah, so there's those services that can help. If you come across a family like this who's on a bridging visa and you're not too sure whether they're entitled to SRSS support or not, you're more than welcome to contact either SSI or also Life Without Barriers. So they're another provider of SRSS services in New South Wales. So they may be able to help as well. There are other community organisations. There might be culturally appropriate community organisations. An example is if it's an Arabic family, there's the Australian Arabic Association. So often when you get in touch with community leaders of families in some communities, then they're often able to help with certain informal supports in the event that the family is isolated. Yep. There's also, if you have issues with bridging visa holders or temporary visa holders who you suspect have issues with, say, for example, women who are survivors of forced marriage, or you believe that they're currently in a forced marriage or something like that, normally the best sort of service you can refer them to is the Freedom Partnership with the Salvation Army, so they can assist with those specific issues in relation to trafficking and forced marriages and underage marriages, those sorts of things, just as an FYI. Yep. So they're basically some of the services, I guess, that specifically work with bridging visa holders in New South Wales. There are specific challenges often faced by asylum seekers, I guess, who experience domestic and family violence. Some of these issues are there are limited places in women's refuges, often due to a lack of options to be able to move out of them. So if you go into a women's refuge, often there's a 3-month time period of stay because it's crisis accommodation. But they find with temporary visa holders that it's actually like they stay there for a lot longer because there's a lot less opportunities for them to be able to then move out of that emergency accommodation and into, you know, more stable accommodation for them, often due to very limited financial support for them if they're leaving a domestic violence situation. So it gets quite tricky and it's a little bit hard for them. Families also in these situations can often pressure women to stay within violent relationships. They may also be threatened by the perpetrator. That, you know, we've had women who've had, you know, family overseas threatened if they leave a relationship and that sort of thing. So often with these women, it's about how do we support them, I guess, from an SSI perspective, when we're supporting them to be able to maintain their safety in their home when they feel like they're unable to leave or until such time as they can leave. It's often for women on temporary visas to be able to leave a domestic violence relationship, they often find themselves in extreme financial hardship. And their children are often in very difficult situations as well. So it's very difficult for them to actually make the decision to leave. And that's why also where they're unable to leave or they feel like they're not ready to leave that situation, we actually try and, you know, go through a process of setting up some safety for them in their home. There's also a limited understanding of the Australian legal system, including understanding and adhering to ADVOs, court dates, those sorts of things. And this works for both perpetrators and victims of domestic violence. They often have a very limited understanding of the importance of showing up to court dates, you know, where there are on an ADVO, if they've got the 200-metre distance thing and then they go to pick the kids up from school because they don't realise they can't do that, those sorts of things. So it's often about being able to work with the families quite closely to be able to understand those sorts of things if there is an escalation of domestic violence. And also there's a lot of fear, especially with bridging visa holders, of disclosure of domestic violence, basically because they believe that if, for example, they disclose a domestic violence incident that they've had, that it may actually affect their application for protection. That's a common belief out there between bridging visa holders in the community, and they don't want that to happen. And so often it's, very rare that you will get disclosures in relation to domestic violence. Yeah. So, and that's pretty much my summary, I guess, of what I wanted to share with you just in relation to the case scenario. So it's very difficult for bridging visa holders in the community when they're facing these sorts of issues.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that information. It's really very extensive, Margaret. You've really provided a lot of information. I'm hoping everybody is able to tune in and get that information as well. Now, I just
Yeah.
want to also ask if Fiona, can you hear us?
Yeah, can
Fiona
you hear
Zhao from
me?
police.
Yes.
Great. So we
Okay.
can hear you, but oh, you're there. Good. So we have Fiona. Fiona is from New South Wales Police. She's the Multicultural Community Liaison Officer with the Ku-ring-gai Hornsby Area Command, if I say that right. And she also can provide information based on the scenario. So go ahead, Fiona.
Thank you, Adele, for inviting me to the forum. Yeah, first I just introduce my role as a general, as a multicultural community liaison officer. We call it MACLO. We are actually the civilian officers employed by New South Police Force. So we are not police officer, but we are actually employed by New South Police Officer Police Force to actually act as strengthening the links between the police and CALD community, which is community from culturally and linguistically diverse background, to make sure police actually respond um, effective to police needs of our communities. So we are the link between the police and the CALD communities. We assist our police to provide individual assistance to CALD community. We also work very closely with government and non-government agencies to establish to hopefully provide good, high quality service to our communities from CALD backgrounds, including international students. The first scenario, we might be able to provide assist police to assist international students, like in Moon's case, if he is, came across with police. In this scenario, it seems like it's a DV situation when the son Ella disclosed the situation to the teacher, dad and mom arguing, and he also raised the concerns of worsening situation and something physically might happen in the future. So as a teacher, he probably identified Ella as a child at risk of harm through exposure to DV, domestic and family violence. So as a mandatory reporter, he or she, the teacher, would report to family community services through our child protection helpline. Um, Police might be involved in third investigation, particularly if concerns relate to physical harm or sexual abuse. Um, and as the police, police will respond and investigate all reports of DV, regardless and any visa status, regardless who make the report and when made the report and where it happened, which can result a local police vehicle attend the location and investigate the matter. So the police will come attend the location and they will actually make immediate assessment of the scene, assess the risk, locate all people, including children if they are present as well. And they will separate all parties and speak them separately. In this scenario, if Fahad or Lena might have language difficulties, the interpret can be organized as soon as possible, as soon as practical, and to be able to get information from them and get a big picture of what is happening. So they will conduct risk assessment as what Margaret said. Please also ask questions, conduct risk assessment. We call the DV set, domestic violence safety assessment tool to assess the situation. And, try to provide using their professional and knowledge to take appropriate action to the situation, and and also assess the grounds whether police need to apply for an apprehended violence order to protect the victim from further violence, or maybe they might play the charges if any offense has committed. So, and the police not work by their own; they actually work with interagencies to make effective and appropriate response to assist victim and assist both parties. In all cases, domestic and family violence incidents will be recorded by our police, and automatically all the victims will be referred to record local a central referral point (CRP) for assistance, and further refer on to their local coordination point, and some actually our domestic WDV CAS, which actually provide, we say, women domestic violence court advocacy services in the local area. But in this scenario, we don't know who is the victim, and in majority cases, we know, majority victims are women and children. But we also acknowledge men can be victim of DV as well. So police will make, appropriate referral to assist victims. For example, refer to WDV case as to support victim of women, and refer to men's line, men's referral services if men's are the victim. So police work very closely with all interagencies to provide, make appropriate and professional response to the situation. And as a MECLO, we are civilian, we're not police officer, but we work very closely with our police officers to assist the victim. And also in every police area command, we have the domestic violence liaison officer who actually a specialized police officer oversees all the domestic DV matters within the police area command to make sure appropriate and best actions be taken by the police. So MECLO, we are actually in all whole New South Police Force. We have over 30 MECLOs working in different police area command, and we speak different languages, and we assist our police officers to those individuals from different cultural backgrounds, provide language assistance, but we are not interpreters. So we provide assistance in general, getting general information or emergency situations. So for this scenario, I might be able to, work with Lena or Fahad, whoever is the victim, to explain to them about the process and link them with, services. And I'm also seconded to Women Domestic Violence Court Advocacy Services, another Sydney, which is a legal aid funded services to provide information, assist the victim of women and their family at local court. So I'm seconded to that service as well. So we can assist the woman victim at court, explain the situation, link them with other staff, and accompany them at the court, explain them court procedures, and also do following up. And we also link them with local culturally appropriate services as well. So we work really closely with police and also outside external supporting services. And also we understand from what Margaret mentioned before, actually there's so many barriers and difficulties for people victim of DV. Especially for community from cultural background, they have so many barriers, difficulties go forward. And in Lina's situation, she might not disclose any information when, being approached by police. She might be very scared of the police, which, she might be in back her own country. And she might be, it might be a shame for her to disclose what is happening in family. She might be very scared of being deported and back to her own country. A lot of barriers, and it's not only Lena's situation, and that's why as a MECLO we work very closely with all external agencies to provide education to outside communities to raise awareness of domestic violence and and to best support our communities.
Great,
Yeah.
great, Fiona. Thank you very much for providing that detailed information. We just, I'm conscious that we also need to
Yeah.
allow all the other panelists also just to answer questions so that we can have a roundup perspective on services available to these people. Now, I would like to ask Maria Comino from Relationship Australia to just tell us a little bit on how you could or the services can provide assistance to this particular person based on the case scenario. Maria, please come forward.
Thanks, Adol. So my experience is working with new migrants, helping them settle into life in Australia in a previous role. So I worked a lot in terms of domestic violence and refugees and the whole gamut. In this case study, the things that come to mind is their level of English and the access to services, the initial access to services. So I'm looking at Fahad. He's worked in an IT company. Lena has been working in a hotel. So I imagine their English would be relatively good, which is very helpful for them. But if it wasn't good or if there was questions around that, I'd be looking at if they're eligible for the ANEP program. Some are eligible, some aren't eligible, depending on their visa status. So Google their visa class and see what they're able to access. If they're not eligible for the free government English classes, then things like accessing the community centres, the libraries, councils, faith communities often have free English classes as well, such as churches and things. So see what's in the local space. Given that these ones have, so we've got the IT company and work, if they don't have current work options, they can often access skill mats, which is a great training program to help with getting work as well. But you do need to have an IELTS of 6.5, and they're potentially eligible for that on their bridging visa. Again, because he is working 3 days a week, Lena not working currently, but she might be able to access mentoring programs. So there's a lot of local services such as core community services down in Cabramatta. I have another one open down in Metro Assist can also do stuff. But then also City East Community College in Bondi Junction has a fantastic mentor program. So Margaret Teed is the mentor coordinator there, and they match people up with professionals. So if the husband found himself without a job at all, he could probably access that and line up with a mentee so that he can actually look at his job skills and how he can get another job in the future. So just something to keep an eye out for. Again, in terms of the job seeking and keeping, they can access services such as Fitted for Work in Parramatta, Dress for Success in Sydenham. Farhad could access Dress for Work, which again is in Metro Assist in Bankstown, so it's free men's clothes. And often they do a lot of training and support and mentoring around job seeking in the local area, and that could be worth getting in contact with them. And then mental health. I think we're going to cover that with the next panelist, so I might leave that. But yeah, keep researching, go to your local council, see what is available, see what's local, but then also see what's further afield.
Thank you very much, Maria, for that. It's just within short time, you've just provided so much information that I couldn't keep up with all the details that you put down there. Just to let you know, some of the services that Maria mentioned will also be in the resource that we'll be giving out at the end of the forum. So it's really a good thing. Also, moving on, I'm just going to call Sarah Pack from Sydney Holistic Counselling Services just to provide an input in relation to the case scenario and tell us or take us through some of the services that are available. Sarah, if you are on, please come on forward. Sarah Pack, you are on the audience. Sarah Pack. Okay, maybe she's experiencing some technical issues. While we're waiting for her to come forward, can I just ask if there are any questions from the audience? So I'll leave that to you, Sunny, just to take us some of the questions. Just we can take some of the questions from the chat while we're waiting for Sarah to come.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure, no problem. So before we start for the questions on scenario 2, I just want to, is it okay if I go for some missing questions from the case scenario 1? Because I have 2 more questions and it's regarding the international student and also working holiday visa holders. And because some people
We could put those questions as additional questions towards the end.
At the end?
Towards the end, just wanting to know while we are talking with the panelists from police, settlement, Settlement Service International and Relationship Australia, just to any questions in relation to those services, that'd be just good to have them while we're having the discussion.
Actually,
we have some time, we can still revisit case scenario 1 and provide additional questions later.
Actually, in the question, there are more comments or suggestions of the services than the questions at the moment. But there are one questions if there is any services for the families, LGBTQIA families. If you have any information or suggestions on these peoples, and
I'm not so sure who the questions would be directed to, but I guess it's following from a previous comment as well from the community support services. I think they were talking about the fact that STARS, which is the can't say the full name, that is the services for traumatized, and I'm not so sure, but it is a start. It's a service that provides counseling for trauma, people with trauma, for example, just in a short. So it's following from that, and they're saying that there's a lot of support for communities, and the question is whether there is support, if I understand this correctly, whether there is support for people from the LGBTIQIA families. So, Maggie,
are you talking about?
so sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I can speak to that. That's fine. So with the LGBTIQ community, it would depend on if there are specific circumstances. Often this community on bridging visas in Australia have come to Australia because, although not with everybody, but because they were persecuted for being as such in their country. So they often have very very complicated sort of situations that they're working through, and starts and New Horizons can definitely help them with that on a torture and trauma level, I guess. Are we able to return a question to the person? Like, what sort of support were they hoping to receive from those people? I mean, obviously, if they're on a bridging visa in the community, they can access all the other supports that I've mentioned that other people can access. I'm not too aware of any specific LGBTIQ groups that specifically support this cohort, I guess. But there are always, if they contact any of the services, I'm not too sure what specifically they were after. But if you have specific needs for people on bridging visas, we understand that it's very complicated for them to be able to live in the community. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Maggie. And I have other questions about police, probably Fiona. Are the multicultural MCLO, multicultural community liaison officer, is across all police area or just in Ku-ring-gai area?
As I mentioned before, there are about over 30 macros which cover the whole New South Police force. So not every police area command have one. So luckily, Kringa police area have one. And so about over 30 macro speaking different languages. So, but we actually work as a team. So even it's not within my police area command, they can still call us, and especially if we speak the same language. So it might be easier for them to speak the officer with the same language gets information. So yeah, we can be called even outside of our boundary.
Okay, thank you so much. And actually, there are a lot of information about and the answers on the chat, and so people are sharing. The participants are sharing all the information at the moment. So please have a look at the chat, and also the Northern Center. They are providing the services for the international students as well as the bridging visa holders. So there are a lot of different informations and services available at the moment, and also you can have a look at the detailed information and having read it through. But STARTTS provides the refugee and asylum seekers counseling for all ages as well. So it's very useful information too. Okay. Thank you for sharing all the information. This is a really good opportunity to get to know all other services as well. Okay. Right. And also ACON, and 2010 for young people. That's for youth services, I guess. In regards to the group speak to ICON first, as many of the support group come through social media avenue. Staff's full name is Service for Treatment and Rehabilitation for Torture and Trauma Survivors. Yeah.
Thank you,
So much.
Michelle. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful. Couldn't say it earlier, but yeah, thanks for letting us
Thank
know
you.
that's the full name for STARTS. Just going back to the case scenario, just we'll take one more, person from panelists. Just going back to the case scenario, probably I'll call on Jane Lu. And Jane, you are, just a minute. Jane is from the Chinese Australian Services Society. Just maybe you could provide some information in relation to that case scenario, if possible. Jane Lu. Can you hear me, Jane? If you can hear me, please, can you unmute yourself and let us know that you are able to provide a perspective? Okay. Okay. All right. It looks like Jane is unable also to join us again. Could be technical problem as well. I'll let you continue with the questioning, not questioning, asking or just getting questions from the audience as well. Sunny?
Yeah. I have other questions. Is there any parenting program available for the people who have bridging visa or have different visa types? Or it's open to everyone, or is there any restrictions to get the parenting program services?
I guess, Maggie, I'm just kind of putting you on the spot, but you may be in a better position to answer that question, or Maria as well.
Yeah.
Sure. I guess depending on where the family is located, they can talk to their local school and the school that the children are part of. So they may have access to services that are available. There's free parenting programs that are run in different parts of Sydney. It just depends on where they are. So contact your local council, contact your local school. You can call Relationships Australia as well and find out if there's any parenting programs that are happening there. And then their local services, like often the interagencies work very closely together. So often the local interagency, the local community services will know about parenting programs. So if you go to Catholic Care or other services, they'll be able to point you in the right direction, or they'll probably be offering free programs as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we've generally found, we've actually run triple P parenting programs at SSI for we've actually run them in language and tried to make them a little bit more cultural specific to certain cultural communities, because we find that parenting programs within themselves are very much based on very Western perspectives, and often with bridging visa holders, it's about them understanding more. It's about learning, I guess, and understanding how these children actually are parented by their parents currently, because there's often a disparity between those two things from the Western sort of parenting way of doing things, I guess. And so we have actually run those triple parenting groups in the past previously. We don't currently have any ongoing at the moment, I don't believe, but there are certain parenting programs that people can that that can be available, like what Relationships Australia was saying. Sorry, Maria. But yeah, I just think that with this community, it's very interesting, I guess, from their cultural perspective to often understand how they parent and what's important to them. And often it's a lot different than what, the parenting programs are that are out there. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And also in the chat, Community Migrant Resource Center also runs online triple P level 4 and 5.
Lovely.
Yeah. And the resourcing parents for the list of the current parenting courses are there. So you can visit the website of the resourcing parents. And also starts early childhood counselors to playgroups as well. Family in Cultural Transition has a module on children, families, and young people. Okay.
There's so much information that is coming out through the chat. It's
flowing.
really, really amazing. It's I'm just getting this is really good that you are able to share with everybody all these services that some of us may not have been aware that existed. So that's really, really good. Keep them coming. I would encourage you, and I would also encourage you to again continue to ask your questions, and we'll be able to relate those questions to our panelists. Now, I have a question, not so sure where that's going to go to, but what support services are available in school for temporary visas holders? And I think part of that also would be, is there any counseling available for children who are victims of domestic violence that are on temporary visa? So it's all temporary visa in relation to domestic violence for children, and support services available to them in school. Not so sure, but I think it's more Maggie again.
Yeah.
Maria, I think you can
No,
also
that's fine.
you can also check in information as well.
Yeah, I think many schools have, obviously, the school counsellors who can assist. There is also within the Department of Education a refugee and asylum seeker support team who try and figure out how they can actually support children better in different schools, and schools can actually make referrals to them for extra funding. It's not a lot of funding, but it's like a little bit of funding that they can have. So we actually have quite a good relationship with a few of the people at the Department of Education in that respect. And if you have people who have specific issues at school, the schools also have had throughout COVID specific in language, the packs that we got when kids weren't going to school and those sorts of things, and also laptop programs they could apply for laptops. So there are specific ways that they can get support, I guess, the children with their education. As far as I know Starts do counselling sessions at school if required. So you can make a referral to Starts, and the Starts counsellors can go to the school and see the children if required. A lot of our temporary visa holders have access to that support. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much what I understand for temporary visa holders as far as goes. Does that sort of answer your question a little bit?
It definitely does. Just before we
And
go ahead.
I've got another question here
Yes.
regarding, yep. And is there any available services for early intervention support for temporary visa holders?
There are
Mhm.
not specifically so, but there are bridging visa holders who come into contact with places like Barnados and those sorts of things. And they actually, you know, often we receive a phone call that they've got a person
Yeah.
who's in this situation and can you potentially help them? I don't think there's anything specific for temporary visa holders once again, because I think it's just the normal early intervention programs that are, you know, more mainstream. And I think, yeah, when they come to those sorts of services, then they can come through to us. A lot of those, like the Brighter Futures program and that sort of thing, have specific cultural, you know, they run specific cultural programs, or they have cultural people who try and provide cultural support in that respect. Yeah, so it's very difficult to get
Yeah.
specific stuff for
Mhm.
temporary visa holders, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But often through schools and that sort of thing, and just concerns that schools have, they come to the attention of, you know, services like Brighter Futures and those sorts of things, where they're then, you know, and they're then referred through sometimes to us, or, you know, to see if we can support them through SRSS, those sorts of things. So yeah,
Thank you, Maggie. And
that's
I
okay.
have other comments on the
Mm-hmm.
services. And someone said it is important to remember that for people on bridging visas, that even with all of these services, access can be limited. A
Yes.
lot of services require permanent visas or citizenship.
Okay.
Mm,
So yeah, some require Medicare as well. So
mm,
she recommend to double check the visas, the criteria with them. Yeah.
yeah. And also, we'll have our information available to anyone.
Mm,
So if they have any generic questions about bridging visa holders and specifically what they're entitled to or what they're able to access and those sorts of things, or they would like help accessing services for asylum seekers, then they're more than happy to email us or give us a call. And if we cannot help, we will find someone who can.
okay,
That's what
sounds
I always say
great.
to people. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, we may not always be able to help, but you know, if we can't and we're
Yeah.
specifically concerned about something and those sorts
Mm,
of things, yeah, then we'll try and help as the best way we can. But it's sort of, I feel like it seems like I'm very limited in my answers, and that's
Mm,
because bridging visas holders have such limited options as far as
that's
services
right.
available to them.
yeah.
Um, and often, specifically with domestic violence issues and, you know, parenting, those sorts of things, there's a massive disparity between what mainstream services see as being helpful and what our cohort of people see as being helpful, or that understanding of how those interventions like counselling and those sorts of things are helpful. I know with the Arabic community, it's actually quite shameful and quite like often they think that they're crazy people and that sort of thing. With, you know, a lot of our Iraqi clients and those sorts of things, they very deeply feel that they're not crazy people, they've just got issues, right? So that whole mental health scenario or talking about things, they don't, you know, have that as a concept of being something that's helpful. So it can be very challenging. Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to thank you very much, Margaret, for providing that. It's really very useful information, as much as you think it is very limited in terms of bridging visas and so on. But I think the information you're providing is still valuable. But again, as you
Thank
said,
you.
anybody who's wanting more information can contact Settlement Services International directly. And again, I keep referring to the list of contacts that we'll be
Mm,
sending out. It's just probably we can even see from the chat here, we can even add on to more that because it's valuable to
yeah,
everybody. So we
absolutely.
may add on to that as well. Just want to give a chance to any person in the audience who is actually from a mental health service just to provide a perspective in relation to the case scenario, because we haven't had anything to do with mental health services. So if you are a professional in that space, can you please come forward and just provide an insight if possible? Just throwing it out there. Okay, we may not have
Yep.
anyone.
There may not be anyone who can provide, like, I am not a counselor or a
Absolutely,
psychologist or
this is what
anything
we are
like
after.
that.
we,
Yeah.
we
So, yeah, but I
And my
just know,
challenge is my
yes,
challenge is just not knowing what services can be accessed by that particular population. It's really
yeah,
for us to know how to.
yeah. And it's interesting because some of the cohort have specific issues with torture and trauma from where they have been in their home country. And for situations like domestic violence and those sorts of things, sometimes you can have children who have pre-arrival traumatic experiences that they come, to Australia. And then when they're at school, they have these, previous traumas that aren't necessarily to do with their family as such. So it's very hard to ascertain, like, unless you can work with a family quite intensively to be able to understand exactly where their trauma's coming from and what's going on for them. To be able to create a certain, an accurate assessment of which mental health services to provide them to. With SSI, the services that we, generally speaking, provide to bridging visas, like normally we refer them either to STARTS if they have previous torture and trauma issues from their home country, then STARTS is a very good organisation to be able to refer them to. And their New Horizons program is actually like an intensive case management support program that works closely with STARTS. Okay, so it's an Anglicare and STARTS sort of collaboration of case management support and torture and trauma support. So you can refer them to those two organisations. And they deal, STARTS deal specifically with those torture and trauma issues. If they have mental health issues in Australia to do with, domestic violence and those sorts of things, or they want counselling around domestic violence, then normally speaking, we would refer them through the normal pathways through the WDV CAS and those sorts of things to be able to get that sort of support. With mental health issues, just in relation to psychological issues, or those sorts of things, we would often just refer them to their GP to get a psychological, a mental health care plan. And for our clients who don't necessarily have access to Medicare, we can actually refer them to, I know Refugee Health sometimes do sessions for them to be able to help them, or they may be able to help them to access services. So, does everyone know about Refugee Health, New South Wales? Yeah. I can provide details if you like later of them.
That'd be
Yeah.
great if we can have a link as well. It is definitely obvious that we will have to add more to the list that we have, so we may not be able to go out today. If not, it'll probably go out a little bit much later. But there is so much good contact list from that we
Mm,
can extract from this chat and then add on to that. So these
mm,
services like the refugee health that you mentioned is definitely going to go on that list as well. We
lovely.
are actually approaching our the end of our presentation with or our forum. We have a few more minutes to go, so I'll probably give a chance to Michelle just to tell us a little bit more about the resource itself or the contact list, and then we could round up at that stage. But for me, if I don't say anything else, I'll just say thank you very much for your time and for such an amazing information. So thank you very much from the panelists. It has been really great. Also, thank you to our technical person, Deidre, here, and also Sunny and everybody, Gian and Michelle, and everybody who's been working hard to make this online forum a success that it is today. So I'll hand to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Adele. Promise I'll be really quick. I'm just going to share the resource that Adele has been speaking about. I know, sorry. So I just want to say thanks to everyone that's been actually putting more information on there, because there's a lot of services that even I have like no idea about. But basically on this resource, you guys will get this via email and a follow-up email that Adele sent out. This has the information of the panelists that were present today. So the organization name, a link to the website and some other contact details. And also there's other services listed. So it's in alphabetical order. And the way I guess would be best to use this, and I would encourage you to do this, is to, click on the links and find out what is on the website, because some organizations may be providing multiple services, so you never know what you might come across. And just to note that some services may be subject to eligibility. So this, because we did a case study on temporary, on international students and bridging visa, so we've kind of put in a mix that might be relevant to those specific groups, but obviously there's more services out there, as you guys have also put down. And also a good tip is to also, that Maria mentioned earlier, was to visit council websites, because there's a lot of localized services as well that are really helpful as well. So this you will get out, and also we'll be collating the information that was provided in the chat, so you guys will get more information essentially. And yeah, never underestimate, I guess, the knowledge that we can acquire from all this, because even if we could help one person, it's still very valuable. So I'll just stop sharing this for a moment. And just want to say that obviously it's not the answer to everything. Not all the services are on there. That you can branch out from that as well, and also feel free to contact them. I know of quite a few services. Everyone's quite friendly, and even if they're not aware of services, they're happy to kind of put you over to other services that might be available as well. So that's also good. And thanks, guys, for the ones that are already putting more in the chat. Keep them coming, because we will be including this. And also just wanted to say a massive thank you for everyone taking their time to come out and tune in to this forum. I know we had a bit of up and down with the noise and all that, but it's all good as long as we get something out of it, something valuable out of it. It's still amazing at the end of the day. And we would appreciate your honest feedback. We really value that, so we can help improve these forums and do more of these in the future, and just continuously, I guess, up the quality. So I'm just going to post the survey link in the chat now.
It's already up. I've just put it a couple of times. So
Okay.
if you just
Okay.
click on that and provide that feedback. We promise it won't take you long, just only 3 to 5 minutes, just quick answers, as in how we did today, because we definitely want to improve on this in the future. So just please do so.
So yes, thank you guys. And sorry, I'll hand it back to you, Adele, on what will be sent out after.
I guess we'll probably finish early, a few minutes to finish, but yes, The link is up there. Please provide your feedback. How have we done? I know, as Michelle said, we've had some hiccup in terms of technology, but again, this is it happens from time to time. But yes, it's just one of those times that the technology fail us. We try to test everything before, and it has worked before then fine, but it's just one of those days. So our apologies. It has been really great having you, and cannot say thank you enough for the information that you have on the chat. As I said, we will include those links that are not um, on our list. We will include that and probably send it out to you, if not late today, then probably first thing in the morning. Um, yes, we would like to continue working with you. This is really has been good working with Relationship Australia and bringing on board the expertise of the other, panelists from valuable services. So thank you very much, and hopefully we will be able to do this in the future. I guess that is from me. I wish you have a very good afternoon. So thank you very much.